Good evening, Excellencies, dignitaries, honorable colleagues, to this special discussion on the National Mourning Day titled 15th August and its Aftermath. Today we will be discussing perspectives, historical issues, and so we would like friends who have attended the various diplomatic missions in Bangladesh. A few administrative instructions. Unless you are speaking, please keep your video in mute so that the discussion is not interrupted by any chance. Let me introduce you to the special guests that we have for today. We have with us the Honorable Foreign Minister, Dr. K Abdul Momen. We have with us Ambassador Mohammed Zamir, Chairman of the International Affairs Subcommittee of Bangladesh Awami League. We have with us the International Affairs Secretary of Bangladesh Awami League, Dr. Shammi Ahmed. And we are very pleased to have with us Sheikh Fazle Shams Parash, who is the Chairman of Bangladesh Awami Jubo League and the keynote speaker of today's discussion. Without further ado, I thank you for your time and would like to start off immediately by asking Dr. Shammi Ahmed, the International Affairs Secretary of Bangladesh Awami League, to give her opening remarks. Dr. Shammi Ahmed.
Excellencies, dear colleagues and respected viewers, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Thank you for virtually attending this special discussion on the National Mourning Day. At the outset, I would like to pay my deepest respect to the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and all the martyred victims of the dark night of the 15th of August 1975. Yesterday, we marked the 16th anniversary of the 21st of August 2004 grenade attack on Bangladesh Awami League. I would therefore also like to pay my respect to the victims of that heinous attack. Excellency, colleagues and viewers, as you all are aware, this year we are marking the 100th birth anniversary of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. As a result, this year's discussion on his untimely demise holds much more significance. August is a particularly painful month, not just for us leaders and activists of the Bangladesh Awami League, but for Bengalis as a whole. The colossal damage inflicted by the assassination of father of the nation when we needed him more to build the infant nation, because we need to understand that the attack on 15th of August 1975 was not only an attack on a person or a family. It was an attack on the founding principles of the freedom of Bangladesh. Right after leading the nation's long independence struggle and serving as the principal inspiration for the War of Liberation, Bangabandhu embarked on his quest to build a Sonar Bangla or a prosperous Bangladesh. In this journey, he underscored the values of social justice, nationalism, secularism, and democracy. With his assassination, these values took a backseat with the reintroduction of communal politics, military rule, and religious extremism by the successive regimes of General Zia, autocrat Ershad, and Begum Khaleda Zia. Justice was delayed for this brutal attack was long. It took 2 decades to even start the investigation because the successive governments of Khandekar Mushtaq Ahmed, General Zia, General Ershad, and Khaleda Zia shielded the killers through legal indemnity. It took more than 3 decades for final verdicts against the killer from the apex court. Since 2010, we have the consolation that most of the criminals have been brought to book. There are 5 absconding convicted killers of Bangabandhu taken shelter in various foreign locations. Unless they are all extradited and their sentences carried out, we cannot rest. We therefore seek the help of our foreign friends and partners in apprehending these killers. We also need greater research and investigation into the political and international conspiracy which helped the killers to execute their plan and escape justice. For instance, with greater research, the role of General Ziaur Rahman is becoming more and more in the coup and killing of the 15th of August 1975. I would not like to take more of your time today. We want to hear from you, our friends and guests. I thank you again for joining us today and paying respect to our father of the nation. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu, long live Bangladesh.
Thank you, Dr. Shammi Ahmed, International Affairs Secretary of Bangladesh Awami League, for her opening remarks. As she said, Excellencies and friends, today we want to hear more from you. So I would now like to invite Mr. Sheikh Fazle Shams Parash. He is going to give us our keynote speech, but before that, I would like to introduce him to you properly. He is the son of Sheikh Fazlul Haq Moni, who was one of the victims of the 15th August tragedy, as well as his mother Arju Moni, who was also a victim of that night. So Sheikh Fazle Shams Parash is now currently heading the youth wing of our party, which is the Bangladesh Awami Jubo League. It is a wing of the party which was founded actually by his father, Sheikh Fazlul Haq Moni. So it gives us great pleasure that he has given us the time and joined us today to share his experiences. Without further ado, Mr. Sheikh Fazle Shams Parash.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I would just like to clarify first or apologize first that my narrative is going to be in Bengali. So pardon me, I was not prepared in English. So I would just start if you allow. রাজনীতি বুঝবার বয়স তখনও আমাদের হয়নি। রাজনীতি কেন পৃথিবীর অধিকাংশ জটিল বিষয় তখন আমাদেরকে স্পর্শ করতে পারেনি। বাবা শেখ মুনি ও আরজু মনির আমি বড় সন্তান। 1970-এর ইলেকশনের বছর আমার জন্ম। এরপরে 1971-এর মুক্তিযুদ্ধ, সেই বছরই আমার ভাই শেখ তাপসের জন্ম। আমি সবচেয়ে বেশি গর্ব অনুভব করি বলতে যে আমার বাবা শেখ মনি একজন বীর মুক্তিযোদ্ধা। ইনফ্যাক্ট মুক্তিযুদ্ধের অন্যতম সংগঠক, মুজিব বাহিনীর অন্যতম প্রধান। বাবার হাতে অনেক মুক্তিযোদ্ধারা ট্রেনিং নিয়েছে। বাবা এদেশের অবিসংবাদিত নেতা বঙ্গবন্ধু শেখ মুজিবের ভাগ্নে এবং উনার একজন রাজনৈতিক কর্মী। আমার মা বঙ্গবন্ধু মুজিবের সেজ বোনের মেয়ে। ছাত্র রাজনীতির সাথে সম্পৃক্ত ছিলেন। 68 সালে বরিশাল মহিলা কলেজ ছাত্রী সংসদের তিনি সাধারণ সম্পাদিকা নির্বাচিত হয়েছিলেন। আমার নানা আব্দুর রব সৈনাবাদ সাহেবও একজন সৎ রাজনীতিবিদ হিসাবে খ্যাত ছিলেন। সুতরাং একটি ঐতিহ্যবাহী পারিবারিক রাজনৈতিক পরিবারে আমার জন্ম মুক্তিযুদ্ধের ঠিক আগে। তাই দেশ যখন 1971 সালে স্বাধীন হলো এবং বঙ্গবন্ধু 1972 সালে দেশে ফিরে এসে রাষ্ট্রপ্রধান হিসাবে দায়িত্ব নিলেন, আমাদের সমগ্র পরিবার স্বস্তির নিঃশ্বাস ফেলল। সবাই ভাবলো এই বুঝি আমাদের সকল কষ্ট ও দুশ্চিন্তার অবসান হলো, কারণ বঙ্গবন্ধু নিরাপত্তা নিয়ে পাকিস্তান আমলে সর্বদাই আমাদের পরিবার দুশ্চিন্তায় থাকত। তাই
Parash bhai, if I can just interrupt you, I think there was a misunderstanding that the keynote speech would be in English. So I think we have to improvise a bit, and if you could give a bit of pause in between your sentences, I can try to simultaneously translate for our foreign friends.
হ্যাঁ ফরহাদ, আমি এটা বলতে চাচ্ছিলাম। ঠিক আছে, তুমি এটা ইয়ে করে দাও।
আমি তাহলে আমি তাহলে একটু hold on a second তাহলে আমি কি I'm sorry জি
পরশ তুমি তো আসলে এটা বলতে গেলে অনেক ইমোশনাল হয়ে যাবা সো তুমি বাংলাতেই বলো মানে ওকে ইয়ে করতে দাও ঠিক আছে ভাইয়া
পরশ ভাই কি বলেন আই থিংক বিকজ আপনার
হ্যাঁ পরশ কি বলো তুমি কি কিসে বলতে চাও কিভাবে
না আমি ইংলিশে বলতে চেষ্টা মানে কি আপনারা কি করতে চাচ্ছেন তাহলে এখন যে আমি বলবো
ইংলিশে বলেন
হ্যাঁ তুমি একটু বলে থামলে ফরহাদ ওটা করে দিবে
না তাহলে আমি আমারটাই rather I would translate my own script
হ্যাঁ সেটা সবচেয়ে ভালো হয় করে ফেলো
but that will be very that will not be এভাবে okay let me just tell my story just a little bit sorry okay forget about this ঠিক আছে Let me know when I can start.
You can start, bhai. You can start right now.
Sure. I was too young to understand politics at that time. Most of the complicated matters in the world was unknown to me at that time. My father, Sheikh Muni, and my mother, Arju Muni. And I was the eldest son. I was born in 1970, just before the Liberation War. During the Liberation War, my younger brother, Sheikh Taposh, was born. I am most proud to say that my father is a freedom fighter. More importantly, he was one of the organizers of Liberation War. Baba trained many freedom fighters during the Liberation War. Baba was nephew of father of the nation, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And he was also a political disciple of our father of the nation, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. My mother was also a niece of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib. She was involved in student politics. In 1968, she was elected General Secretary from Borishal Mohila College Student Union. My maternal grandfather was also veteran politician. He was also a very prominent political leader in Borishal, Mr. Abdul Rab Sainyabad. So I was born in a well-reputed, very traditional political family. So when in 1971, the country was formed and liberated, and when the father of the nation came to Bangladesh in 1972, we all were sort of relieved in a sense that our lifelong struggle for anticipation and lifelong struggle and anxiety regarding the safety of father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib, was over. That's at least what we thought. So when Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib came back and took over the responsibility of the country, at that setting, my childhood was developing. I was growing during that time. My father was at the same time a journalist and a politician, youth politician. My mother was a housewife, and at the same time, she was also a student of Dhaka University in political science. So I was getting raised in a very warm and loving family environment. Especially, I must recall Sheikh Fazilatun-Nisa Mujib, my Sheikh Fazilatun Mujib was who I used to call Apon Dadi. I was very fond of her. She used to take care of all my demands. The house in road number 32, Dhanmondi, was my favorite place to visit. I was also fond of our current Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina. She used to be very loving and compassionate towards all the kids, as well as to me. She used to love the children, spend time with them, and we children were very fond of her. Me and my brother were very fond of our mother, our Jubo. We were very clinging to her. We hardly let her go to anywhere, even to the bathroom. She used to shower us, put us on the dressing table, and used to comb our hair. Took us to school and feed us and kept and put us to sleep with lullaby song. Father was most fathers were little less available. He used to run a newspaper, actually a number of newspapers at the time, and very busy with the organization. But however much we used to get our father, I recall that I was very clinging to him. We used to make him a horse to play with. I used to comb his hair, and whenever we used to get him, we were extremely clinging toward him. Once, Baba went to Khulna for organizational work. I made a demand that I must find my father. I need my father right away. So I started make a fuss about it, and was demanding that I need Baba. So Ma was Ma was puzzled by my demands and put me on phone with my dad. And I asked him that you must be here right now. I need you. Baba, I need you right now. So Baba said that you have to be a little patient. I will come tomorrow morning. So the entire time went with anticipation that Baba will be here next morning. Next morning, so I couldn't sleep the entire night. Next morning, we went to school, and I was still anticipating, and I was feeling happy that Baba will be back today. When I came back home, I looked for Baba everywhere, but Baba was nowhere. Then I found her in the bed. He is tugging in under a katha. So when we found our dad, that was the most happy time I recall of my childhood. So now I'm going to narrate a part on that very difficult day of our nation. So it was very early morning before the dark dusk, that we woke up with the noise and the sound of arms, bullets, and firing shots. So we were just two brothers. When I woke up, I found just two brothers in the bed. Baba, Ma were not around. So, but there were huge noise and of gunshots, and noise coming from the stair room. So we didn't know what to do. So we two brothers held each other and went to the stair room. So that's where we found my father and mother lying on the ground, bleeding to death. And my grandma, I recall the scene, my grandma was acting really not in good shape. She was acting really crazy, and completely a chaotic situation. So at that point, at that point, and my uncle and aunt, Selim Kaka and Chachi, they were trying to save my parents. And my parents, my father was probably completely dead at that time. He was not moving or making any sound, but my mother was speaking. She was trying to, she was fighting hard with life and asking for water and communicating a little bit. She told my chachi and chacha that what will happen to my Parash taposh. So and that's what I recall her saying, and she also said that please take care of my kids. So that's my that's my recollection, and that's my recollection from that, and actually last recollection from that about my father and mother at that time. So that was probably her last remark or comment or saying. What happened afterward is sort of vague to me, but I recall the sound of bullets, the gunshots, and everything. And some people were coming towards us, towards our building or our house. And so my chachi, my aunt, took me to the dressing room, had us lay down on the floor so the bullets don't hit us. We didn't get to see our parents after that incident. So we heard that my Salim uncle took my mother in one car to the hospital, and my father was taken by my younger uncle Maruf Kaka to the hospital. When everything was when the gunshots appeased and everything was calmed down a little bit, we got out of that house with just whatever we are wearing, and took shelter to a building next, which was an official building of some embassy. So we took embassy building or diplomat's house or something like that. We took refuge there, and we were able to watch that army cars are coming to the building, and they are vandalizing and and robbery and taking stuff out of the house and stuff like that. So that's where our life of refugee begins. So we were taking shelter in one house for some time, then another house another day. So that's how we lived for many months. I would say at least 5 to 6 months. And we were taking shelter in different, so wherever we used to go, they would, the killers or the army personnels would, the so-called army personnels, I would say, would come to find us. And many households, many families were harassed because of that, during that situation, because of us, because we were given shelter by them. There are many examples and incidents. I wouldn't go so much details, but I would just say that we were taking shelters to relatives' houses, friends, and etc. And everywhere we went, and that households were harassed or or threatened some way or another. During that time, we did not get chance to mourn or express our sorrow, because life-threatening threats of life and life security was such a dire issue at that time. And so my uncles, they couldn't stay in the country. They had to leave the country because of their life security. So that went on, that type of situation went on, and we have been taking shelters at different places. So at one point, where my major pupu, she rented an apartment for us, so that our life of drifting around comes to an end. But we couldn't stay there too because life security was so intense. Within a couple of months, we decided that now we are going to go to our Chacha Chachi. Let me clarify, by we, I mean that we two brothers and my aunt who was like teenager for 15 years old, my young Choto Pupu, and my grandma who was 60 up. So she's an elderly person and or close to 70 actually she was. So she was actually elder than Bangabandhu Dada Sheikh Mujib. So she was, I think, close to 60 years old or close by. Anyway, so those are so two female and we two kids. That's the situation I'm talking about when I'm saying that we were drifting from one place to another. So rest of the guys or male in the family have fled the country because of life security was so intense. So we couldn't live in that Arambak house for too long. I know time is a factor something. Then we
ভাই আপনি বলেন সময় ইস্যু না আপনি বলতে থাকেন.
Okay, then we made an attempt to we made our first attempt to cross the border to leave the country, but we were not successful. We were not successful in the first attempt, but I have to tell you, if all the attempts of crossing the border was extremely hard, painful, and tiring, exhausting, and difficult and life-threatening. So the first attempt was not successful. We tried to cross the border from Agartala. And that attempt was not successful because some culprit, the place where we were staying overnight, that people wanted to give us away to the military or the administration at the time. My grandma overheard their conversation and she got scared and fled with us that place, leaving all our belongings over there. So that's how we escaped and left that place. And then in the second attempt, we made from Meherpur. And in that attempt, I also recall it was as I said, it was extremely difficult to cross the border. As you understand, we were not crossing the border in a regular way. We were hiding and escaping our own country. So that's how it went. We finally in the second experience. So we were able to cross the border, but we were staying. I recall an incident that we were staying in a place. It was kind of a place where there's water everywhere, sort of an island. You could say it's sort of an island, and it was very extremely dark night. It was a very remote place and it was scary environment. And so when we were trying to, so when we got a signal and we had a guide, Mr. Nojrul, he was our, a freedom fighter and our guide and helper, our well acquainted. So when he gave us a signal that, okay, now you can cross the border, you can run. And we started running, crossing. We were running and there were water up to our knees and like sort of, or like more than that. So we crossed that watery path and then we kept running with taposh. Sometime on my dadi's lap or sometimes my Rekha Fufu was holding taposh and running. So that's how we crossed the border. It was extremely hard. Our main inspiration was that if we cross the border, we'll get to see our parents. Because we were told that our parents were on the other side, were outside the country. And if we can reach our Selim Kaka and Maruf Kaka, our two uncles, they will take us to our parents. We were never told that our parents are actually dead. So we were in denial, we were in oblivion that we lost the most precious persons in our life. So finally, we crossed the border, and and it was a long process. They checked they checked for approval from the main office and stuff like that. And then when my uncles came, it was a very painful scenario. They cried like babies holding us. We didn't know that why are they crying so hard. We thought they were crying just to see, but there was deep inside reasons or latent reasons for crying that we couldn't realize. And we were hoping that, okay, we reached the border, we will be taken to our parents. So we came to, but they took us to a home. It's called the Cinderella home, the Cinderella place. The Cinderella place, the house was called Cinderella because there's a department store outside, which is called Cinderella department store. So at that time, we were taken to that house and we were looking for our parents, but but we couldn't find them. We find many other relatives, and we found our cousins and relatives. But where is mom and dad? They were nowhere to be found. But we kids, we sort of, I guess we got used to that environment real quick and started playing with our cousins, as normally most kids do. Then we were so we lived in that house for few months. And then because there were too many people coming back from Bangladesh to take shelter over there, so we changed our house, went to another place, then another house. That's how the first, and during that exile time, my aunt was always careful that we don't get sad or we don't get upset. So she used to take care of us all the time, try to divert our attention so that we don't ask for our mom and dad. So she used to sort of distract us with taking us to outside to go to maybe a movie or take us to a circus. And so that's how she concentrated on us. So that's how that period went. And gradually we realized that this whole idea about finding mom and dad, and the whole idea that mom and dad are outside our mom and dad are, sometimes we were told that mom and dad are actually in London, they're having treatment and they will be back, or we will be going there. So as I am growing, so we spent about 3 years in Calcutta over there. So during our exile time, close to 3 years. So 3 years is, a child grows probably quite fast in 3 years. So in 3 years, so we started to realize, okay, what's happening? Whenever we talk about mom and dad, everybody gets upset and they don't say anything. They say like, oh, they're upset, they're having treatment. So what exactly going on? Gradually, so I got fed up with asking about mom and dad, and I started becoming a little maybe cranky. And so I used to, and Tapas was too young to say anything or claim anything. He was kind of a passive type. So I realized, like, okay, I stopped asking about mom and dad at one point. You know what? That's it. So I started giving up on that hope, I think. Then but my final understanding or realization came when we were coming back in 1979. So when we were coming back in 1979, that's when I realized that, the whole idea that mom and dad is there and we will be going to our mom and dad, or mom and dad will be coming back, is actually a story. Is not fact at all. It's actually a fiction. So that's when I realized, like, okay, that's when I really became hopeless. And then we came back again, crossing the border, coming back, just 4 of us, again, the 4 of us, 2 female and 2 children. So 4 of us coming back. And when we, again, border crossing, again, the whole 9 years. And when we at last came back to the country, we found that we couldn't rent any place. People don't give us any house for rent. We hardly have any money. So we stayed with our aunt, my eldest aunt, Maya Pupu, to her place for 6 months. And then my uncles, my both chachas were also taking preparation to coming back to the country. They were sort of judging the security state over here. So when we came back, and my relatives, my dadi and pupu, they were extremely protective and cautious about our security. We were not even allowed to step outside the gate. So, children at that stage, they want to play around, but we were not allowed to play that much. Actually, not at all. So that was one thing I noticed. And also then finally we took an apartment to live in Lalmatia. And Chachi was trying to get her into school. But we realized that not all school is safe for us, because you may find the killers or the killers or the the same community or their killer's community or their accomplice, their children in that school. So that kind of research had to be done. Okay, who else read in that school? Is that school secured for Parash and Taposh? So that was the whole kind of a struggle or dilemma to even select a school. So at first we were, for example, we were admitted to the same school where we studied before my parents were killed. So, but it was Udayan school. Then after studying there for close to a year, my chachi and pupu realized that that's not school is not safe for us, because the principal is having the principal had a very good relationship with Ziaur Rahman Sarkar at that time. So that was not a good decision. We got away from that school. Got out from that school. Then we were admitted to another school where Awami League leader Rajak Kakka's wife was teaching. So we felt secured in that school. Okay, Rajak Bhai. So chachis were thinking that, okay, Rajak Bhai, wife okhane porai, bhabi okhane porai. So that's why they became so, okay, so that school may be a little secured because Rajak Kakka's wife, Chachi, used to teach there. So we got finally admitted to that school. And that's how our study begins after a disruption of almost 3 years. Mind you, we were in, I just recall that we were admitted to Don Bosco School in Calcutta just for a few months, just before we were coming back. So yeah, so a disruption took place in our studies as well, in terms of schooling. And then we realized until Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, came back to Bangladesh in 1981. That was another day in our family's life that we will never forget. That was most sorrowful day, I would say, in our entire family. It was raining the entire day. It was raining cats and dogs, very muddy and and the whole nature was sort of pouring down. So anyway, so it was hard because all the family, it was very real, or like realizing how difficult it would be for her to come back to this country where he left so many loved ones, and will come back and will find none. So that was very hard for us to take, and all the family members were crying, and she was crying also. She was fainting, I mean, several times. She was, and everybody. It was really very hard time at that to even see, and as you can understand. So she came back, and then she started, and we lived in the same house for a little bit, and then she started, and that's when I saw her, that she started to organize the political party. And at that time, I noticed that how hard she started working from dawn to dusk. She worked very hard to organize the party at the time. She will be away sometimes for a couple of days, sometimes for hours, from like morning to, and that's when we realized that she's trying to get justice for her parents, for our parents, murder in 1975, and that was her main objective of working so hard from morning to dusk and late at night. So that's how I observed her struggle, and actually I never realized at one point. I was very pessimist, I think, because I never realized it would be even possible to get the justice, because we saw that all the killers' families, they were rewarded. Their children are showing off, and showing off brands and various brands, sneakers and shoes and watch and all that. They were like really, they were the dominant force in the country at the time, and very, very arrogant also. So in the schools we went, in our children community, we felt like it was very difficult. I personally did not expect that it will ever be possible, because we also heard that there is an indemnity law of some kind which barred the country from taking any action in regards to that occurrence of 1975, that killing of 1975. So I lost hope, but I noticed that our Prime Minister, our leader, Manoniya Pradhan Mantri, Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, she didn't give hope. She tried hard from relentless struggle and relentless attempts to organize her party. And then we went from door to door seeking justice, which we didn't get. We had to wait long 21 years to get the justice after all. And after, when Awami League came to power, when our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, came to power in 1996, that's the only time, that's the first time we saw lights that, okay, now this may be possible. It may be possible that we may get justice. And before that, it was not possible. Even in my imagination and from a personal note, that this would be possible. So that's the scenario. That's all I have to say. I think I'm going to stop here, but I think I took a lot of time. I apologize, but that's where I end, I think.
Thank you, Sheikh Fazle Shams Parash, for sharing your experience with us. We understand that it's not easy for you. It must be painful to relive those days from your perspective. Friends, colleagues, and excellencies, and his younger brother was, I think, 3.5, if I'm not mistaken. But there were also children who were even unluckier on that day, who had to die themselves. So we have 4 children who were murdered on the 15th of August, if I can just give you their names and age. So we had Baby Serniabad, who was 15 years old. We had Arif Serniabad, who was 11 years old. Sheikh Russell, who was the youngest son of the father of the nation, he was 9 years old. And there was Shukanto Abdullah, the grandson of Abdurrab Serniabad, who was only 4 years old. And we must also remember that there was a child waiting to come to this world. The mother of Sheikh Fazle Shams Parash, Arjumani, who was brutally killed that night. was pregnant with a child at that time. So these are, we understand, very painful experiences to live again through narrating these to us. So we thank Sheikh Parash for doing this. He usually does not speak on these topics much in public. At this point, we will invite the Honorable Foreign Minister, Dr. K Abdul Momen, to give his brief remarks on today's program. And before I go to Sir, there is only a small thing that I must do from my side. We understand that many of you might not be aware of the events of 15th August. So we have prepared from the International Affairs Subcommittee a very brief booklet called The Darkest Night and Its Aftermath. We will be showing it to you briefly through sharing my screen, and then you can download it or read it online in our party website, albd.org. So let me just briefly show you the booklet that we have prepared in English. It is not meant to be a very exhaustive resource, but an introductory one. So anyone who is interested to know about 15th August can start off from this booklet. So we'll be sharing our screen and show you the booklet that you can find in our party website.
ফরহাদ, তুমি বলে, ফরহাদ শুনতে পাচ্ছ?
জি,
তুমি বলে দিও যে এটা পরে আমরা ওদের হার্ড কপি পাঠিয়ে দিব।
হ্যাঁ বলবো। So this is the cover. It basically gives you an account of what happened on that night, what was the situation of Bangladesh during that period, what happened afterwards, how the killers were shielded from being brought to justice, what was the long quest for justice that ensued over the next 3 decades, and also a bit about all the victims of the tragedy. So as I said, it is not meant to be an exhaustive resource, but rather a starting point for anyone wanting to know about the events of 15th August 1975 in Bangladesh. So you are most welcome to visit our party website, www.albd.org, to download a copy of it or read it in an ebook format. And let me also add that we are preparing the printed versions of the booklet, which will be sent to all the missions in Bangladesh as well as our missions abroad, so that they can be shared with our friends abroad. So I'll now stop the screen sharing and come back to our discussion. And I would like to give the floor to the Honorable Foreign Minister, Dr. K Abdul Momen, for his brief remarks. Sir, unmute kore niben, sir.
All right. Thank you, Farhad, for giving me the floor. On this very special occasion, the 45th death anniversary of the father of the nation, I pay my deepest respect and homage to the bereaved family, and of course, pray for their salvation. I had the privilege to know Bangabandhu even before he became the Prime Minister and President of Bangladesh. And that came to me because knowing a head of government, knowing a leader personally was so important to me on those days, and therefore it was really shock to me. And it was difficult to absorb it. Unfortunately, it happened. That is the darkest night, morning for the people of Bangladesh. Let me say the greatest I could see, we have many friends here, young people, as well as many of the foreign dignitaries, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The greatest achievement of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the greatest son of the soil, is the creation of independent and sovereign Bangladesh. I often say that Bangladesh may not exist, may not come into an independent state without Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. It is possible to have independent United States of America without George Washington. It is possible to have the Indian country, dominion without Mahatma Gandhi. But we cannot think of Bangladesh without Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He is the one who dreamed of it. He was the one who worked hard for it, and eventually he realized his dream of independence and sovereign. This is his greatest achievement. Let me go back a little history, since I have so many foreign friends here. India was divided to two states, India and Pakistan, in 1947. Pakistan had two wings. One was West Pakistan, another was East Pakistan, separated by around 1,200 miles apart. The majority people, over 56%, were from East Pakistan. But you see this, but out of our relationship, our living together with Pakistan for around 1947 to 1971, almost 23 plus years. Out of that so many years, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, remained in prison for almost 14 years, most of his life. And for what? And for what? He was in prison again and again as he wanted to achieve the rights, voting rights of his people, to ensure justice, to have food for his people, to end economic disparity and economic exploitation and deprivation, and to speak in his own mother tongue and enjoy his own culture. These are the basic rights, but he was imprisoned and jailed again and again for demanding these basic rights. And in the process, people started adoring him, supporting him. After his relentless struggle for years, finally in 1970, the Pakistan government decided to have the first nationwide election under adult franchise to be held, in which his party, Awami League, won 167 seats out of 169 in East Pakistan. 167 seats out of 169 in East Pakistan. And the other major party was Pakistan's People's Party, led by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. And he won only 80 votes, 80 seats in the parliament. Naturally, in a democratic society, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman should have the right to form the government. But because of the conspiracies with the military and the Pakistan government postponed the sitting of the parliament on 1st of March, 1971. Naturally, Bangabandhu declared non-cooperation, and rank and file of all the people of Bangladesh, around 99.7% people of Bangladesh, they joined his non-cooperation movement. Remember, when Mahatma Gandhi, at the height of his popularity, asked for non-cooperation in the undivided Indian subcontinent, only 2% people joined his non-cooperation movement. But in case of Bangabandhu, 99 points, except few Pakistani military officials and some senior Bangladeshi officials, everybody joined his non-cooperation movement. On 7th March, Bangabandhu. I was lucky to be present in that particular meeting. Bangabandhu inspired the nation to fight for their right. And he said, even if he's not around, even if he cannot give directives, he asked his nation to fight to the last. He said, even if I'm not alive, I'm not around, you should continue your war, and inshallah, we'll be achieving our goal. Now, and people like us, the 7th March speech was a speech for independent Bangladesh. We never bothered about anything else. We knew that he has given us the directives for a liberation movement. On those days when we were shouting, Bhuttan Muke Lati Maro, Bangladesh, Adin Karo, Podda Meghna Jamuna, all those slogans, among this, we got the message from him. Fight to the last until you won. Unfortunately, but he was a visionary and a great statesman. While he declared basically to us to fight for our independence, he gave 4 conditions to the military government of Pakistan. And those 4 conditions was difficult for the military government to accept. One was take back all the military to the barrack, allow, give the power to the elected representatives, do a thorough inquiry of the death of so many people. So naturally, the Pakistani military junta could not do it. But in the process, what he did, in spite of unilateral declaration of independence, he was such a visionary, he put some conditions by which apparently it is a demand for people's demand. Unfortunately, and he said if those demands are met, only then he will consider joining the parliament. Unfortunately, on 25th of March, at wee hours, the Pakistan military let loose a genocide on unarmed people of Bangladesh, and for which on the first night, depending on whom you listen, around 15 to 25,000 people got killed. And under his guidance and spirit, although he was absent, the Bengali nation, including students, laborers, day laborers, farmers, and common people, launched a war of liberation. And after 9 months and 10 days, on 16 December 1971, we won our independence with the help of India. We are thankful to them. Bangabandhu could run his administration only 3.5 years. And within this short span of time, he changed this war-torn economy into a positive GDP growth rate. While in the 1970s, 71, when we had negative GDP growth rate, within 3.5 times, because of his dynamic leadership, when he was killed, the GDP growth rate turned into 7.5% from negative 11.3%. This is a miracle. Within a short time, what he did within 2 months' time, he could allow India to take back their soldiers from the Bangladesh soil. This was possible because of his dynamic and charismatic leadership. Within 10 months time, he adopted a wonderful constitution. I may remind others that it took 9 years for Pakistan to adopt its own constitution, and it took years for USA to adopt its constitution, around 13 years. But because of Bangabandhu, who knew everything, we could have a constitution within 10 months' time. Within a short span of 3.5 years, Bangladesh could get the membership of most of the major international organizations, including United Nations and World Bank. And Bangabandhu was successful to get recognition. Out of 136 UN members, 126 countries recognized his government, because He initiated a foreign policy which is unique in the world, and we follow it today. The cardinal principles of his foreign policy was friendship to all, malice to none. His foreign policy was non-intervention in others' internal affairs. Foreign policy was independent and non-aligned. He promoted peace across the nations. He said Bangladesh could be the Switzerland of the East. And within a short span of time, he maintained such a good relationship with neighbors, particularly India, that he signed few agreements, including land boundary agreement, including sharing of water, and of course, friendship agreement. Unfortunately, on 15th August 1975, when the country was becoming more successful, away from the devastation of war, you see, when country was about to becoming more, and we are achieving more or less better food crops, he was killed mercilessly, along with his 15 family members, including 10-year son, Fazle, and his military secretary, ADC. These conspirators killed him, but his principles, his values, his vision of Sonar Bangla can never be defeated. It is still alive, and since Bangladesh is a nation of victors, we are sure to achieve his vision of Sonar Bangla, the dream of our father nation, under the dynamic leadership of his daughter, our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Question is, why people, loved Bangabandhu so much? It is because he loved his people very much, and he fought for his people. Let me narrate one story. Once a journalist asked Bangabandhu, "What is your greatest strength?" He said, I quote, "I love my people." Then he asked him, "What is your weakest point? What is your weakest point?" He said, and I quote, "I love my people." That was Bangabandhu. Because of his love, people used to respect him so much so that if anybody can, I have seen even in my own eyes in 32 Dhanmondi Street, that even if anybody can touch his clothes, they used to feel gratified. They have done something great. That was the type of popularity he had, a mesmerizing popularity. He was friend to the poor and to the dispossessed, not only, only for Bangladesh, all across the world. When he spoke at the UN General Assembly on 25th September of 1974, he spoke for the dispossessed people of the world, the exploited people of the world, and he wanted justice and fairness for all of them. When he was asked, he said, the world is divided into two groups, the haves and the have-nots, the exploiters and the exploited, and I am with the exploited. No wonder when the Fidel Castro was asked, "What do you think of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman?" He said, and I quote, "I have not seen the Himalayas, but I have met Bangabandhu at the Himalaya." Another reason why he was loved by people, because he always stood for justice and rights of people. Even when he was a young boy, he always spoke and valiantly, strongly for the poor people and the dispossessed. When he was a young boy, even, and always looked after the young people. There was some, bad crops, so people were starving, and he took out rice from his own house to distribute it to the neighborhood. When he joined the university as a law student, and there was the fourth class, the poor people were demanding their rights, and he joined them. And as a result, he was kicked out from the university. Bangabandhu knows the country very well, as his daughter also. And he knew that this country belongs to all faiths and all denominations. So he promoted secularism. And it is so essential for this country because we have various faiths, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, all, and they are all citizens of Bangladesh. There must not be any discrimination. And good news is till today, Bangladesh is a land of harmony, is a peaceful land for all religious faiths. This is so visionary because nowadays I see, because nowadays we observe that millions of people being uprooted from their homes, from their traditional jobs, and becoming refugees, loitering around the world, is because hatred and intolerance between various groups and religious faith. And therefore, with the spirit of Bangabandhu's harmony and tolerance, if we can create a mindset of respect for others, a mindset of tolerance towards others, irrespective of color, ethnicity, religion, or background, we can hope to end violence across nations and wars and establish a world of sustainable peace and stability across nations. COVID-19 shows us that neither bullets nor stockpiles of weapons can save human beings. However, it is love for people, sensitivity to people's needs, and helping the humanity we can build a better future for all. May I ask my fellow colleagues, young friends, and excellencies to work together in collaboration and cooperation to being inspired by the spirit of Bangabandhu, being inspired by his spirit of his love for people and the dispossessed, to create a brighter world for all of us. We can truly honor the sacrifice and the contributions of Father of the Nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, if we can achieve Sonar Bangla and his dream of peaceful Asia. Let us hope for the best. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu.